Hello, my name is Anne-Marie Van Roo, and this is my Journal 1, Assessing English Language Learners. So what do you learn about the advantages and the challenges of standardized assessments? So there's a lot of advantages, but there's also challenges. According to Diaz and Rico, when teachers do the assessments, teachers can focus on what students need to know. Teachers can pursue an articulated sequence of instruction, integrating teaching of English into the increasingly sophisticated levels of language, and help students build genuine understanding through the depths of conversation in the classroom, fluency, communication skills, and cognitive academic proficiencies. But there's also challenges. According to Diaz-Arrigo, when schools emphasize standardized assessments, ELL students might get lower test scores, thus putting them at risk of failure. When schools and their teachers focus on testing, this cuts the time where teachers focus on teaching the academic subjects and the language skills that the ELL students need to perform well on those tests. There has been unequal educational opportunities because there has been unequal school funding, resulting in poorer schools. Thus, there's lack of resources because the poorer schools reflect lower test scores, and lack of resources hurt English language learners. So there's different types of assessments. The different types of assessments are there's performance-based assessments, which contains oral reports, presentations, demonstrations, and written assignments. There's also portfolio assessments. There's work samples, drawings of content knowledge, and there's recordings, teachers' progress reports, formal testings, data, and rating sheets. Assessing content knowledge is also a way for teachers to assess how ELL students understand the concepts and how they respond and how they demonstrate their knowledge. And there's also formative assessments, ongoing assessments through the lessons and quizzes and observations. And there's summative assessments, which is state assessments into the unit assessments and standardized base assessments. So, informal assessments are the best way to assess students, especially ELL students. Teachers can be more flexible in how much scaffolding and knowledge and how much work samples are taken into consideration when looking to see how much the students know, have knowledge of the content. Formal and summative assessments have a lot of academic language that the ALL students may not understand, and thus not giving them the true score of how much they really know. So the best thing to do is always the informal assessments and taking into consideration how much work and how much work they have shown through their knowledge and how much they actually understand. What are some of the best practices? According to Diaz and Rico, the best practices that all teachers should be practicing is assessments should reflect what was taught in the classroom. It needs to be relevant to the students' lives. That's why there needs to be some culture in the classroom that represents the students. And the way the instruction was delivered is the way the assessment should also be delivered in the same way. So similar conditions. And I think to make things relevant for the students is so important to help the students understand. That's why culture and representation is so important for all students and their backgrounds. And there needs to be a variety of ways teachers teach and represents the culture. So my experience with teaching ELL students is I'm also a special education teacher, and I've tried to make sure my students receive the best practices that all teachers should be following through with. and there's the way assessments are done. I have made sure that the way the lessons was taught, I make sure that assessments are done in the same way with all accommodations that the students need that are in their IEPs. And making the lessons relevant to the students' lives is never easy, but I'm always making sure that the students they make connections. That's why I'm always looking for books that the students could relate to. That's why I look into Chinese New Year's and I look into Hispanic Heritage Month to help those students feel represented and seen. Also accessing students' prior knowledge um, while helping them make connections. And I remind students to do this when there's also assessments being done. Thank you. That's my presentation, and here's my reference page.